mean, I guess we could discuss the pickup, but it sounds like you're gonna, in
Well-
terms of using the pickup, right? If
Well-
you're using it for fires, I guess that would
The fire
make
department.
sense for you to possess that.
The fire department still uses it,
Right.
there's no
That-
question.
That makes sense for you to possess that. But in terms of for you to possess a stretcher, when it could be used in an ambulance, that kind of makes a lot of sense to go into an ambulance. Would you agree with that?
Right, but we own it, and we do not have an ambulance.
Is there an ambulance right now that needs it somewhere?
They still have one in Litchfield, and they have an approved stretcher with it.
The stretcher would be very helpful on some of the calls for some of the patients. 87-1 ambulance being used is a bit of a higher vehicle, and this stretcher would really help with those lifts into this higher vehicle. And
I
also
think it'd be a
with,
good sign of good faith to, you know, put that
We hear,
stretcher
we
in
hear
the
the good faith,
ambulance,
we hear the
right?
good faith thing a lot, so you're not gonna get positive feedback from me on good faith. So let's go to the next thing.
Just from a common sense standpoint, it seems to me like a
Alright.
stretcher belongs in an ambulance. If I were to bring my toddler in here and hand her an ambulance and a stretcher, I'm sure she'd know where to put it.
I'm sure she would.
I mean, it's really not only for the patient care, which we should be very concerned with, it's also for the volunteers and the paid staff that are lifting those patients into the ambulance. It's a safety issue also. And it just really makes sense to have that structure where it belongs in an ambulance being used for the people in Morris.
Where would it belong? And who
In
owns
the
the stretcher?
ambulance, well, Joel,
I get that, we're not gonna go much farther than this.
okay, I guess. it's-
Let's keep working on the list,
Sure.
maybe we can find something. The trailer with the dress uniforms.
Okay, keep in mind, the trailer was something that we bought. We had someone that had to have that. And we keep our stuff in it. And again, that has got our property, and it's just an open box trailer, that's all it is, anyways.
I'm a little confused as to why this particular item is even on the list. Is there some disagreement about,
I could probably tell you, but you would shake your head.
okay, maybe confusion's better.
Yeah, this is one of those that someone added because it was entertaining, even to us it was entertaining, so I wouldn't lose a lot
So
of
this
sleep
is,
over that.
this is something we can probably get rid of, right?
Yeah, I would cross that one off, yeah, no, that's,
So-
there's stuff in it.
And why was the trailer on the list
I didn't do the
from your,
report.
okay.
Yeah, I could probably
Do you
figure
have
out.
any issue with the trailer coming off the list?
No, it's the trailer.
It's for our use, it's not a big
And
deal.
we've
We'll
agreed
sleep
we
over it.
can eliminate this, right?
We can eliminate
Hey, there we
that.
go,
I'm good
guys,
with that
yeah,
one.
there we go, D out of the way. There's
trailer
progress.
currently is being stored someplace off-site. I'm assuming with their uniforms and their gear within it.
No gear, because the town of Morris buys the gear. Gear's all
Uniforms, whatever.
uniforms, correct uniforms.
So storage unit and what storage unit? I mean, the disclosure for the townspeople, I guess, would be the issue. with that.
Uniforms, we bought a lot of uniforms. And that's just, those were bought by us, that's all.
This invoice date is July 31st, 2008.
Yes, we bought uniforms.
So
That's what we have in the trailer, we have uniforms.
I thought we were talking about the storage
No,
unit.
I was just clearing the store, but that could be there too. Just so the storage unit,
Are they in the trailer or the storage unit?
those are entry in the storage unit.
These are the storage unit. So from 2008 to, we got the storage unit, where were these kept?
They were either in the basement of the firehouse or in the trailer if we were going somewhere to parade. It's one of those things.
These are the dress uniforms for the.
Correct.
Sure. So suffice to say, the storage unit houses things that are owned either by the fire department or its members that have nothing to do with the town of Morris.
It's stuff that we bought that's incidentals. We had a security problem over at the firehouse, so we pulled what we could,
Valuable.
valuables that were corporation owned.
So nothing that the residents should be privy to.
Correct.
Moving down, we got the current plan of action as referenced in the October 26th emergency meeting minutes.
Well, and I believe, and I don't recall, because there's no minutes from that that was where we were getting the storage unit, putting our stuff in it.
At the emergency meeting of the MVFD on October 26, 2 motions were made after coming out of executive session. The first was to proceed with the current plan of action if approved by the Morris Volunteers Legal Counsel and to spend up to $400.
I believe, I don't remember, when was that?
October 26, 2017.
Okay. Again, I don't remember, it's one of those things, here's your stuff, do you wanna leave it here? No.
Well,
That's
the
the
second
current
motion
plan of
was to
action.
approve the expenditure of up to $3,000 a year rent storage unit to purchase supplies. So the first plan of action, I guess, is what we're discussing. And you don't recall, and your meeting minutes are not detailed enough.
Well, it's executive session discussion, you can't vote in executive session,
It's when you came out of executive session.
right? Following the plan of action as decided.
Then you had a motion to proceed the current plan of action. So what was that plan of action is the question.
I don't recall, but probably putting our stuff in a storage unit.
Well, that was the second motion, so that couldn't have been the first.
It could have been. But I
You
honestly-
wouldn't have had another motion for it.
And I honestly don't remember.
You just don't recall.
I don't recall.
And so you don't remember what that 400 was to be spent on then?
No, I don't, but I'm sure that those minutes there would have been fire department funds anyways. So it would have been stuff that the body authorized to spend of its own money.
Well, I think we've been through order number 1 here. Question is, do we jump back to the beginning or do we move on to number 2? Because 3 and 4 are chicken and egg.
Well, actually, Forge long-term regarding the disposition for revenue recovery funds is pretty easy, because there is no further revenue recovery funds. If you don't bill for ambulance service, that's your revenue recovery. And even if you accelerated us to first responder, there's no money come in for it, because the ambulance that transport gets to bill. So there's no bills for first responders.
Is there a goal by the fire department to return ambulance service to the town?
Is there a goal of the town to back the ambulance service?
I'm not sure what you mean by back it.
You need a lot more volunteers and a lot more time and a lot more money. This is a very large town of Morris problem, because I'm not gonna stress the same volunteers I got trying to return the ambulance to town. If you're a young age, you could do it, but you'd have to get a lot more of your friends to take an EMR class, EMT class. This is something the town has to buy into. I think the ambulance should come back, if that's your question.
Are you pursuing a PSA for the ambulance?
There's no point in pursuing the PSA if you don't have enough people.
So how are you going to go about getting more people? I mean, the town, if you can convince the town people to join your fire department, then
Tommy, you took the EMR class. Did you pass it?
I haven't finished it.
Okay, that's good, because there's one more EMR. So, but again, you need a lot more than one, you need
Yeah,
a lot more.
so what's the recruitment effort by the Morris Volunteer Fire Department, I guess I'm asking?
I think every day on the front page, people love seeing the fire department, so I think it's doing very well.
So there's no plan?
I'm not gonna ask anybody to join this place while we're fighting over stuff.
Okay, I guess that's the answer.
I mean, part of this commission is to kind of help you develop a membership or recruitment plan.
I get that.
And implement that.
And I heard you say at the Board of Finance that you would like to go door to door with me looking for members. I will drive you. I'm willing to do that.
I mean, with the current leadership in place, I can see why it might be hard to get membership,
Yeah, I get that.
right? I think you get some fresh blood in there, maybe it might be an open situation, things might turn.
Sure.
But in the interim, maybe we can develop a plan that would help. Door to door is certainly one of those options
Yeah.
on that plan.
Joel, are there milestones that you think, if we reached here, would spark your membership to kind of embrace the goals that I think we all might have? And if there are, can you articulate them, or can you have a meeting with them and articulate them in a future meeting, do you think? I mean, are there things that are really rubbing them that you can tell me? that we can work on or achieve a plan to rectify? Or do you think we're just kind of,
Why don't you go, you and I can go out and have a drink sometime and I'll explain stuff to you. And that'll be a good time for it.
I would like that because I've gotten some feedback from people that have attempted to join. And I personally do not want to air that in this environment.
I get that.
I want it to be more, how come this feeling is there? So I will take you up on that.
Oh, I'm all for it, I'm all for
Okay.
it.
I think it might be helpful.
I think it's a wonderful idea. We're not gonna keep minutes.
No, I
Wouldn't remember them anyways.
No, I get that.
I'll
especially
drive
after-
you guys if you want to drive.
Especially after a few years.
But that's his character.
maybe that's where it's gotta start.
So how about some of these other considerations in terms of sparking membership?
Thank you.
Would you consider amending the bylaws to giving voting rights to new membership?
Absolutely not. This is another person who wants to take over the firehouse, and they want to come in and have a new person vote when they don't have a clue about anything. So, bylaws, and I have them. Actually, I think I got a copy for everybody. It's towards the end. And the part they're referring to. And again, this affects new members in no way, shape, or form, because no one has ever complained that they can't vote for the first 6 months. So it says voting, only active members and junior members, when allowed by these bylaws, will vote at department meetings. Newly elected members are not allowed to vote at department meetings during the first 6 months of their membership. I can assure you that it's not affecting membership drives in any way, shape, or form. So, and I think probably you guys have something similar to that, I don't know whether it's true or not.
Membership problems are not isolated to Morris.
No, definitely
It's obviously a nationwide issue. Recruitment and retention is in the news all over the place. It's everywhere. Just the time commitment and the added training and hours and hours and hours. I mean, it's everywhere. I don't know what the answer is, but
People are scrambling, pay mortgages. and,
absolutely.
you know.
No,
Working 2 and 3
No
jobs,
question.
yep.
Do you have a
Yeah.
membership and recruitment plan for your department?
We're working on one, but no, we're struggling too. Yep. But it, like you said, it's beating the pavement, it's getting out there, it's getting people to know that you need the help and want the help, and
I'd like to,
getting yourself out there.
I'd like to mention that, and you said it yourself, that the negative publicity about this whole thing is, I would think, impacted your recruitment
More so.
terribly. And I honestly, when Joel called me to, and his words were, "Can I twist your arm to get you to be on this committee?" I said, "I'll do anything to keep you guys out of the paper." And I think, I'm not meaning this in a bad way, but it's pretty sad that a small operation like this, we can't put our personalities aside and try to make things work. And ever since Joel asked me, I've tried to think about a way to try to come up with some great idea on how to get people to get along. And I became chief in Washington, and that was my first goal, is to just get the chemistry to work well. And fortunately, we were able to do that, and we became almost a full roster. And it had nothing to do with me, but it had to do with people learning how to get along. And if I understand the bylaws and what seems to be maybe town charter, you work for him. Is that right? You're a department of the town.
Correct.
He's the CEO, and he, you answer to him. I mean, I understand that the fire department raises its own money for special projects or other things that wouldn't be considered to be in the operation of the town, whether it's equipment or the personal protective gear and things like that. That's the town's responsibility, if I understand it. I believe that if you were asked to disclose how much money the department has, you're not required to do that, but I think you should do that. I think you should be open. Everybody in this town, whether they donate to your fund drive or donate by taxes, you work for them. And I think you're obligated to try to do what you can to make that work.
Are you empowered to agree to that, Joel, or do you have to take that to your membership?
I don't have the totals with me anyway, so I would have to get the totals, but I could probably do that.
When's the next department meeting?
Tuesday?
This coming week? You've said us a couple times you need to check with the body on a few things. I think we should come up with a list of things that need to be asked of the membership before we can really move forward. If you guys are open to that, I don't.
Yeah, you can ask.
Absolutely.
I mean, the first one is the department willing to provide the EMS service for the town of Lawrence in the future? I mean, if they're not willing to do that, then
Do you,
cross that one right off.
do you need a certain roster of EMS personnel to even achieve the PSA?
When you do the PSA, you have to, because you're required to run that ambulance 24/7. So you have big liability if you don't get it. Now, if you're out on a call and the next town comes down and bumps you, you're out on a call or you're busy, that's how it is. So you have to staff it 24/7. If you just do first responder, a lot less requirements. If you're around, you go. If you don't, you don't. Your first responder bag, and you can get the oxygen and some other things.
And town has the funds, but you can go back to paid service to be 24/7 now, correct?
If you wanted to do that, certainly.
Even if you did something creative like that, you did the two staff 12 hours a day and then go on the overnight to one staff and hopefully use a volunteer until you get your volunteer
Can you use
staff.
automatic mutual aid at all?
You can, but after a certain amount of times, the state realizes that you're not actually running your own department, you're using somebody else's. The state never blinks if your ambulance is out on another call and you call mutual aid. Never even blinks, they don't care. The state has an action limit. I don't know if it's 25% of your calls you have to make. If you start missing more than 25%, they start worrying, because obviously you're not protecting your town. But again, you got to really miss a lot of calls to hit that.
And I would imagine if you continue to improve,
Right, but I don't.
they would look at that in a
I think-
positive way.
I think we had 2 calls last year where we had Bantam Transport once. It was a Saturday night call and the responding person went and the only one that showed up. So they just called for Bantam and loaded them and left. And I don't remember what the other one, but I think there was 2 last year. Yeah.
That's only 2 out of 115, though, right?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, right. It was
Most
a decent, enough so you wouldn't worry about it.
But they were moving down the right path with the list, right?
Yeah, I mean, what other questions do we need answered by the department?
Will they
Is,
allow
yeah,
audit of the
audit,
financials?
right.
Also a roster,
The roster, I think Tommy has. I can get you one if you don't.
So when you say
the
the-
roster active membership.
Can I just ask you what this board is gonna, or this committee is gonna do with that? I
We're
don't
just
know
gonna
the need.
determine if it's even possible for them to to do the ambulance at this point if they don't have the staff to run it, right? And then we
Okay.
can throw that one out just like you had mentioned.
Gotcha.
Right, are they willing and do they have the staff to do it?
Okay.
What are, well, about the qualifications of the roster, the people on the roster? What are their certifications?
Well, for EMS, that's simple. You take the names and you plug them into the state website.
Not always up to date, but yes.
Oh, it's pretty close. I mean, within a
We've had
couple
some
weeks. I think.
discrepancies, that's all.
Oh, yeah?
That's why I'm
Okay.
asking.
Well, an accurate roster will help us determine the metrics that are needed to, make decisions.
Possible.
Or
Sure.
Right?
encourage.
Yep.
Is the possible R1 status on the table, or
I think it should be.
it's a step?
You're the chief, but I think it should be.
Regarding this audit, we're talking about the revenue recovery funds, correct? Joel, do you think there's any opportunity for, this has nothing to do with, what has transpired to now, but just in general, towns seem to be more taxed in providing services. Do you feel we have opportunity to gel with some surrounding communities and share resources in a way that's different than what is done today with mutual aid? Have it be more like a consolidated regional type attack on ambulance and fire, or has that been tried and it doesn't work well? I'm not saying tried around here, but in the nation, and it just doesn't work.
It depends on how you do it. A lot of towns, we do automatic mutual aid with Bethlehem and Bantam a lot. If you go north of here, Pleasant Valley, and those guys, they do 4 tones for every department around them, because they might get one person from each town from the day. Which is how it is. I mean, it's true, it's a laughing matter, they all work everywhere else. So, a lot of mutual aid, but they run their own tones for each department. There's no Department A that I'm aware of that buys half a truck and the other department buys the other half a truck, because who's gonna insure it, who's gonna store it, who's gonna qualify it, I mean, that would never work. You do a lot of mutual aid, and it's an automatic thing. LCD calls up on the CAD, and they say you have a fire on Bantam Lake Road. Well, it's an automatic thing for Bantam and Morris. It works out good. LCD tones about the same time.
Sharing equipment is tough though, because you got those insurance issues and who owns it.
Who owns it, who
Yeah.
buys it, who keeps it.
I got you.
It is possible that we do that. I mean, obviously, it's not fire and EMS equipment, it's a different story, but we do that with the Northwest Council of Governments. We share, actually purchase the equipment as a council, maintain it as a council. It's stored in various towns throughout the region. The costs of maintaining it, insuring it are all borne by the member towns. It's something to look at, I think, in the future. I mean, that's a big change for the whole idea of fire departments and EMS is, because everyone has their own. All these small little towns that they each have their own, and it's very important to them. It's like having a school in your town. It's important for the community. So, but it's a thought for the future, I would think.
It's
I
more
think
like
EMS is heading that way, though.
It's like a county approach, which is done a lot in the South United States.
Well, and of course, when you send that same piece of equipment from here to Washington to wherever, to Watertown and back, and it breaks in between. So the next guy takes it out and says, who broke it? I don't know. And who fixes it?
Well,
So,
they would have money built into their budget for maintenance and
who,
maintain that
who has money in their
equipment.
budget? We can't even pass one. So it's complicated, it's really complicated, but.
What else was he gonna bring back to the membership? Stretcher, revenue recovery, EMR, or R1?
I think the only other thing we gotta discuss is the inventory of equipment, truck checks, and the financial statements, the advisory committee, we can do the audit.
Well, I'm missing my last page. Anyways, the inventory of the trucks is over there, that's all completed. It's currently located at the firehouse. If Albert's here, he's got that all on the computer.
We have a copy of that then?
I can make arrangements to send you one.
Thank you.
That includes like a maintenance list of what was done on the vehicles. Dates.
Different thing, maintenance is more of a, when you take care of stuff. And of course, another interesting year, I don't have a budget. So it's one of those things where we may be getting behind on that.
The town insures all the equipment.
We have a line item for it.
How about the maintenance records for the vehicles? Are
Uh,
they accessible, and will you be willing to allow the access to them?
When we catch up, we'll get you our stuff, and keep in mind, I'm still waiting for engine 3 to come back from you.
You do realize, I ask this because they are town vehicles. They are maintained with town funds.
Yep.
And those records are generated by a clerk who's paid with town funds. So these are literally town records.
But
And in order to ensure everything's going smoothly, we'd like to have access to those records.
And traditionally, we keep them over there,
Correct.
and you don't need copies over here. Because Tommy would like to have a
Town
full-time
records?
job, and he needs to justify it.
Well, you're getting a little off your course, of course.
I'm just telling you where the problem is.
But they have the records of that.
Yeah, yes, is the long answer, yes.
And those are accessible then now.
I can make arrangements.
Those kind of things just speak to the transparency. It doesn't seem like a big deal to produce that.
Shouldn't be.
If the town is paying for those,
Yeah.
including the record keeping. I don't even think it's unusual for any selectman to ask for access to those.
And they're town vehicles, or the, correct? Town-owned vehicles?
Yes, towns are correct.
So the town-owned vehicles, that the town budgets for the maintenance on those vehicles, that the clerk that's paid by the town keeps a record of that.
Right, and she's been sending you copies, I think anyways.
No.
So
The last two
should be
she sent
easily
over.
available.
It just seems like one of the simple things that can just get struck from the list, right? So copy the records, they've been maintained, or if they weren't, you know, we didn't have the funds because we didn't have a budget, and that thing is off the list.
I mean, believe it or not, we're making progress, we're hitting almost every item on the list. Right, in terms of revenue recovery, you're gonna go back to find out if we can get an audit on that,
Mhm.
right? And then,
Actually, I'm sure that's complete, but
and then the audit will show if there's money available, if there's no money available, and that will solve that issue, right? Because then we can either have a discussion about that, or if there's no money available, we can have a discussion about why it's not available, or where it went, or how it got appropriated, we can discuss that at that point in time. Stretcher, same thing, you're gonna go back to your membership, we'll have a discussion on that. Pickup truck, the dress trailer, storage unit, we've gone off the list tonight. No points. Current plan of action as referenced in October 16th, we don't know. Maybe we can see if any of the membership can remember that. Can you put that on the list?
I don't think it's gonna go anywhere with it anyways.
Can't hurt to ask, right? In terms of a long-term agreement for revenue recovery, well, that and the PSR and the membership recruitment drive will all have to be tabled till next, because if there's no ambulance, there's no revenue recovery, there's no ambulance, there's no PSR agreement, and we obviously need membership in order to move those two items forward.
I think the membership also goes back to firefighter staffing too, not just CMS. There's definitely a need,
Oh, yeah.
especially daytime need.
Well, there's even nighttime need. You get a big fire, you need everybody.
You can always use membership.
Oh, yeah, no question.
reason- It's a
So
good thing, more members the better.
hopefully there's a plan of action for that.
Well, I think we can help develop that plan of action with some creative thinking, especially with two department heads, or two chiefs, excuse me.
So I just have one more question that I hope is, never has to be dealt with again, but because it was presented at that selectmen's meeting, special meeting, whatever it was, are you aware of any current or past abuses of the point system that abates taxes for the membership that are entitled to it?
No, I'm not. When we turn this in, you get a copy of it, Nancy Skelton gets a copy of it. We give her the complete thing, she gets the points. We get a point for everything. And it's interesting you bring that up, we'll get into that, but everybody gets a point for everything. If you wanted to consider it, we could call the members here, this is a meeting of sorts they attended, they could get a point. Work nights, drill nights, we give points if you're the ambulance person on whatever your night is. If there's no call, if you said you're on and you devote yourself to being there, we give a point for that. Because you made the time to be there and you said you'd be available.
Understood.
So you can get a lot of points. The interesting thing that was brought up, and the person who brought up the question is fully aware of that, points for pension and points for tax abatement. It was just one of those things they brought up for entertainment. When we write everybody's name down in the book, they're auxiliary. If that auxiliary person walks across the street and gets hit by a car or gets some sort of chemical on them, were they at the call? So we write them down in the book, and that's why they're in the book. And I'm sure I was the one that put, everybody gets a point, I'm sure that's why that came up.
But there's a protocol, and certain individuals or members are assigned those points based on their attendance, but there's never been any
No, if you,
playing around with that, for lack of a better term.
no, because the executive committee has to approve the list, and we go through the list, you have to have one drill per quarter, you have to have one monthly meeting per quarter, you have to have 6 drills per year, and then we have to total up the points. You also have to attend, if you get the $1,000 tax abatement, you have to have 15% of the calls. I think last year, 15% of the calls was maybe 14 or something, it's not that difficult to make, or to not make. But no, we check all that stuff. When it comes over to Nancy, she gets a copy of everybody's list and everybody's points and all that. And I've never heard of anybody ever getting asked a question about it.
Is there a difference between points and attendance?
Not necessarily, because if you have an ambulance call, say you're doing first responder, you help load the patient in the back of the ambulance, you get a point for that. If you're the ambulance guy and you drive and it takes 2 hours to go down to the hospital and come back, you still only get 1 point. But you showed up, you got there, you signed your name in the book, and you attended the call.
So whoever shows up,
Yeah, it's pretty much.
a member, whether it's auxiliary or whomever, it's not attendance, they're actually getting points?
No, auxiliary do not get points.
Okay.
If you read our requirements on points, it's firefighters, EMTs, there's a whole paragraph on it.
What's the definition of the firefighter in that point system?
Well, I can use a firefighter for anything. The discussion is,
What is a firefighter?
if I say to you and you're old enough to pull hose and you drag that hose over to the front door, and the next guy is an interior fireman and puts on an air pack and goes into the building, everybody's a firefighter because you're a member of the fire department. So there's no delineation as to who is what.
So you can do work on the exterior without training?
You are allowed to work at the level that you are trained to. So if you have an exterior firefighter, they can